All right. Hey, beautiful people. If you are watching me on the replay, thank you for watching me. If this is your first time into my live podcast, thank you for joining me. What I do is I get to talk to people that are doing things to empower other people by sharing their story. And once a month, Jeff Rogers and I, we come on and we get to talk about relationships. And we've been doing this for a couple of years. I'm going to add him to the stream now, and I'm going to have him introduce himself to you all. Um, hey, Jeff.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Delightful as always. Glad to be here.
You don't always sound delightful. Your affect is always flat.
That's because I'm lying. How's it going?
Wait, you're not,
I'm happy to
wait, are
be
you
here.
not?
The therapist?
Are you lying about that?
We'll never know. Good to see you.
So this is like our last show in my 30s. Yeah,
I
I'm
didn't know what was going to
39.
be. This is our last show. I said, damn, I've been fired, replaced.
Yeah, I'll be 40 in a couple of weeks. So this is it. This is the end of the 30 era.
Well, congratulations. You've aged like fine wine.
No, thank you. That's been the plan. And can you tell people who you are and what you do?
Oh. I'm Jeff. I'm an executive coach, trainer, facilitator. I work with organizations. I work with individuals. I work with folks who are basically trying to improve their outcomes by working on themselves, by changing themselves, right? Which sounds easy, but in fact, it's probably one of the most challenging things to do, which is why most people, don't often do it. But there's ways to improve and change yourself. And if you do it right, your life can be better tomorrow than it was yesterday. And that's what I try to facilitate. And so I come and we talk about these relationships as well, because, it's all under that same umbrella.
When you just for out of curiosity, I understand it, but when you say changing is one of the most hardest things you can do, what do you mean by that? Because I think a lot of times there's a lot of self-help books out there. There's a lot of like people that are giving advice about life. So the information is there. So it's not the actual tangible information that we don't have. What is it about the actual change that is hard for people to do?
Well, you know how when you're driving, you ever been driving and then you realize like, damn, I have not been paying attention in 10 minutes. How did I not hit anybody? And how am I still on my way home? You know what I mean? Human beings have an autopilot. You can do things just because it's your pattern. You can't necessarily drive to a place you've never been there before on autopilot, but you can certainly drive from your job to your house without even really thinking about taking a right or taking a left anymore. And in fact, you can be on autopilot in life in a lot of ways, right? Where you just kind of operate, you go through the motions. Why do you work there when you hate it? Well, it's where I work. Why are you still together? It seems like you fight more than you have good days. Yeah, but I mean, that's just what we do. Basically, autopiloting your way through life. And change is scary. And oftentimes the patterns people are in, they're in them for a reason. And so you have to be intentional in order to punch through and be free. But oftentimes, if you do it again, you can get towards something better. Then basically, it's like, I'm sure there's some plants in your yard. I know Celeste is into gardening now. So there was plants in your yard before, but it wasn't the plants you wanted. You didn't want dandelions. You wanted whatever, rutabagas, whatever you're growing. And so with some work, you're able to slowly remove the plants you didn't want, add the plants that you did. You got to water them. They don't just happen. But in the end, you actually have curated a garden that you feel good about. Your life can be that same way. And that's what I help people do.
Yo, you're a beast with the way, like the analogies. Like that's actually dope. I'm gonna start using that.
Steal it.
But I will let people know like I got it from you. Uh, so we have a few questions, so I want to get started so I don't run out of time.
Let's do it.
The first writer is asking, how do you know if someone isn't right for you? How do you know if someone isn't right for you?
First of all, that's an interestingly short question. That there's a lot in it to be like 11 words. How do you know if someone isn't right for you? Oh, and by the way, Celeste, you curate these questions, but I have never seen them before, right? Right. So I guess how you know if someone isn't right for you, one of the number one ways is you know what it is you're trying to accomplish, where it is you're trying to be. So, for example, if you are if you're intent on getting married and you're with somebody who you enjoy but who express that they don't want to get married, then they're not right for you in the sense that they're not going towards your goals. But conversely, if you do not want to get married and you're with somebody that's always pressuring you to get married, that person is not right for you because they're not helping you get towards your goals. Conversely, you can also be with somebody who agrees, like, yes, I do want to get married, and you want to get married, but you don't enjoy or get along with them. In other words, you want to be at the same place, but not with the person you're with. So that person is also not right for you. So basically, it's a combination between who's in the car and where the car is going, right? You could be going to the right place with the wrong person. You could be going to the wrong place with a person whose company you enjoy. But someone who's right for you is someone who you're going to the right place and you enjoy their company. What do you think about that, Celeste?
Yeah, I like that. And as far as like, let's say when you say you got to know what you want, I think that's important because all relationships look different. You would never know when people tend to glamorize like relationship goals as far as like a picture or somebody together. Um, but when you say like, for instance, like you have made a goal that you wanted to get married and then the person may not want to get married. Do you think sometimes people can change their mind? Um, and do people wait to see if they change their mind, or do you think that they should stand firm on whatever they say they want out of a
Right.
relationship?
So, do I think sometimes an individual changes their own mind? Yeah, that happens all the time.
Hmm.
Do I think that their partner changes their mind? I actually think that happens a lot less.
Yeah.
Meaning, sometimes people go, well, I know you're the person I want to be with. So all I'm going to do is work on you until you agree to do what I want you to do. And at that point, everything will be perfect. But that's not really what it's like to be a human being. Because if changing your mind so easy, why don't you just change your mind and not want to get married? Oh, you don't want to change, right? But other people should change, but you shouldn't. And so oftentimes, people, when they have, to stick with that analogy, it's the right person in the car, but the person doesn't agree on the destination. They just bring up every other week, hey, you want to go to my destination? No, I told you I don't want to do that. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. But it's a good destination. Do you want to go? They just work on them again and again and again until maybe the person folds and says, okay, I'll go. But have they actually changed, right? Where they actually have changed what they want? That's a lot less frequent. And so it can be hard because it's so hard to find somebody that you're compatible with. But rather than trying to work on people, you should accept what it is that they say they want. And if they want to change, they will, but not thinking that's something that's under your control.
Yeah, I like it. That's good. And I think for the person who wrote this or anybody who this may be something you've been thinking about, really be clear on what you want. Um, and when I say clear, sometimes the things that you think you want is because maybe culture says that's what you do or society says that that's what you do. So be clear on what it is you want to do. Write it down if you have to. Like, that's okay to take time to write it down. And then if it doesn't work for the person you're with, it doesn't mean the person's a bad person. It just means like they're just not right for you.
Right. And you can be, it's also something that happens sometimes when you don't know. That's a tough thing. You say, but what if I don't know what I want? Right. That's, you can't possibly accomplish your goal because you don't know what it is. And so that's a particularly unfulfilling place to be because every
Yeah.
day, if you don't know what you're trying to achieve, then there's nothing to orient your day. Have I made progress or not?
Yeah.
Should I keep doing what I'm doing or not? Hard to say the answer to that when you don't even know where you're going. So the first work is the
Yes.
self work of knowing what you want out of life. At that point,
Yeah.
once you know what you want out of life, you can then find a partner who is compatible. So basically, if you don't know where you're going, no one will feel right for you.
Yeah, that's true. And even though this is about a relationship with a partner, this is this applies to yourself as well. Understanding what you want out of life for the individual self, and where you want to go. Writing it down. These literally the same applies to yourself. If anybody's struggling, I want to get the audience a question in, and then I'll go back to the written in questions. Um, so it says, I wanted to know, should there be a time stamp of forgiveness on a broken relationship? After a certain amount of years, do you say let bygone be bygone and be cordial, or do you talk it out and then move on?
Mm, that's a good. So I like the term broken relationship, right? You wonder what could that exactly mean, but it actually doesn't matter. It's interesting. It's an interesting phrase. It actually doesn't matter what it is. This question is about, so things end and they end in a negative way, right? And the question is there some timeline where at a certain point you're just supposed to have let it go and you be cordial and talk it out, or what do you do? Do you reunite? Well, this question is conditional on how valuable the relationship is, right? So it's one thing when it's with a parent, and it's another thing with somebody you dated for 8 months. Not that you couldn't be very in love after 8 months, but I mean, it's not your mom. Do you know what I mean? Uh, and then it's another aspect too, not just that, but it's what was the infraction. Sometimes you look back and you say, well, damn, that thing they did, it wasn't really that serious. I was in my feelings at that time. But maybe they tried to sell you into human trafficking or steal your kidney. That's pretty serious, right? And I may never forgive that. I think regardless, maybe people have heard the idea that, hate and revenge, it's like drinking poison and hoping that it'll kill the other person. So regardless, even if they did the worst thing to you in the world, a lot of the self-work is to not be obsessed and consumed with it, right? That doesn't mean you forgive the person, but you kind of accept that happened and I've moved on. What does that mean when you interact with them? Well, if it's somebody who you deem untrustworthy, you're not obligated to start giving them trust chances again in the future. Let's say they stole out of your bank account. They hacked you and stole your bank account money, right? No matter how long that is, if we were both adults and then you did that, I may never trust you again. But does that mean every time I see you, it's on site, we're just fighting? I think that's expensive to you. Do you know what I mean? I think that for Rosemarie, that's very expensive, where you go like, this person kind of still controls me, because when I see them, they make me so furious that I cuss them out all over again. Or, oh, my whole day is ruined because I saw you. Instead, you want to do the self-work where you could forgive them, but even if you don't, you basically can just like walk by them like it don't matter, because you've processed it and moved forward. So basically, I can't say whether or not you should forgive somebody after a certain amount of time. It depends on what they did and what you think about it. But I can say that regardless, you should get to the point where you're at peace that that's a part of your history. And it's not like when you see them, oh, I'm re-triggered again and I cry and I get so furious. You want to get to the point where I can think about it, I can talk about it, I could walk by them and still live. That's like the goal. Not so much that you rekindle with them. That's maybe yes, maybe no. What do you think about that, Celeste?
Yeah, there's no right or wrong answer. And I'm about to be 40, as I said earlier. Um, my son is 11. So like when I was pregnant, my grandmother, she fought me. This is a long story. I'm not going to tell the story about around it. It's mad random, but she's 91 now. So she was like 80 years old and I was super pregnant. And now she's 90 and according to people, she wants to see me and stuff. She's never been kind to me. um, I don't care to see her. And when I was telling my therapist about this, I could tell he was feeling some type of way because she was 91. And he said, "Well, it sounds like you made peace with the situation, right?" Like, and I have now, like that's my this is my prerogative. This is what I want. Somebody else may say like, "Oh, she's 91, like, she's older, like I'm going to forgive her." And I feel like that's the right thing for them, but for me, I want no parts of her. And whatever type of relationship it is, I'm a firm believer on like really thinking about like what's going to work for you, like what's going to make you feel at peace. Because when somebody harms you, like I've worked with people who struggled with substance use over the years, and when they get sober, there's so much that they've done. And I talk to them and help them make peace with the fact that you can ask for forgiveness, but that doesn't mean the person wants a relationship with you. And so if you're the person that's been harmed in the relationship, you have to think about like, all right, like Jeff said, like if I'm in this relationship, whether it's a partner, a friend, a family, like am I going to be struggling with being around them? So it's kind of like, what's the point in doing it if you still are harboring all of these things? I know that I would struggle with being around her. Does that make any sense what I'm saying?
Oh, not only does it make sense, I didn't notice you mentioned where grandma apologized and said, "Listen, I was wrong and I shouldn't have
Right, right,
treated you."
right.
I didn't hear that. I just heard that
No.
she's old. And so the idea, it's as if there literally was a statute of limitations, but there necessarily isn't. I'm not sad. There's old people that, okay, you old, but whatever. Like, I don't like, if you a jerk, if you're an old jerk, you're an old jerk. I don't care. If we don't, if we got nothing to repair, right? Because it's not, you didn't mention this. This may or may not be true, but like, oh, grandma was so sweet, but when she lost her job, then it took a turn. It's just like, no, you acted like a jerk, then you acted like a jerk, then I cut you out, and now you're old, and you say, no, come see me. Why? So you can be an old jerk? I don't care about that.
Right,
So I'm not
right.
I'm not missing anything. You miss me. I wasn't a jerk to you. So that follows. That tracks.
Yeah. And I think with like family members or with somebody being older, there's this like notion that, well, they're older or they're my parent or they're this and I'm supposed to. And you don't supposed to do anything that doesn't work for you or doesn't feel good, especially when people have harmed you. It's really important, I think, for people to remember that. Somebody says you can forgive and move on. You don't have to move on with the said person. You can move on by yourself. Exactly.
Right. And again, forgive. One definition of forgive would be the idea that goes, I look at it now and it's okay what you did and we're back to square. But you don't owe someone that ever. But you can that's why I say stuff like process and move on, where you basically go like, look, this happened. I didn't enjoy it. It hurt me. It has informed who I am today. And it's to the point now where basically it's a cut that healed. Okay, it healed over. I'll always have the scar, and the person who cut me, I don't trust them to be close enough to cut me again. But the cut doesn't bleed like it used to, right? It's not infected, it's not sore. That's what I mean by process. Forgive sounds like it goes, it's okay. I would now trust you around me with a knife. I wouldn't, grandma, because look what you did when you had me. So I don't. And I think that's totally valid.
I hope that was helpful. All right. So the next question, it says, "What is the difference between a healthy and unhealthy relationship?"
Um,
Um,
these questions are
that's big. Hey, Edward.
all right. These questions are
Um,
they're short in words and huge in scope. Right? That's a huge question. What do you say, Celeste?
uh, somebody's definition of healthy, like if somebody loves polygamy or polyamorous, I might be saying that wrong. I
Polyamorous.
probably am.
So
Yeah,
polygamy is a
wives.
marriage.
Yeah,
So polygyny is marriage with
polygyny.
multiple. That's right. Is marriage with multiple wives. Polyandry is marriage with multiple husbands, and polygamy is marriage with multiple partners. In other words, there's more than two people, but gender not specified.
It doesn't have to be
Um,
marriage, right? It could be like a
it
relationship
does.
or no.
Polyamory.
Oh,
So polyamory would then be these more than two people in a relationship, but they're not married, right? I got two
okay,
boyfriends and three girlfriends, that kind of idea.
okay.
Just laying them all
Uh,
out. So go ahead.
no, I know because you're so smart. That's what you do.
Mhm.
Make me look dumb. Oh, I'm just kidding. So like for instance, that kind of situation, somebody that's into monogamy may think like that's unhealthy, right? So this question is so big, it really mounts down to like what works for you and your situation. In my household, my husband helps out. He checks in before he gets home to find out what I need because I work from home. And like for some people, as a partner, they may want to just do everything. They may not look at that. For me, it would be unhealthy for him not to help me. For some people, they may want to do everything on their own, right? So you have to really think about what it goes back to, like earlier, thinking, writing down, what do you want? What are your needs, right? Like, how do you want them to be met? And I think that that can help you understand, is this relationship healthy? The issue that's happening is everybody's just wants to be in a relationship. And I was one of those people. Like, I thought the relationship was something that was supposed to save me. Put that in quotation marks. And society, especially now, like the holidays are coming, society puts, or we allow society to put pressure on us to think we're supposed to be in a relationship. And so, like, we're chasing these relationships, but we really don't understand what we really want. We don't understand ourselves. And so I think that when people can really understand themselves and understand what they want, because some people you may think you want kids and you may realize, like, I really don't want kids, right? Like, there's just so many different things that you do on autopilot, like Jeff talked about earlier, and you don't realize you're doing an autopilot because your family says this is supposed to be this way, society says, your friends are doing it this way. When you sit with yourself and really make time to be with yourself, you may realize there's a lot of things that you're doing that you may not want to do. And so when it comes to this question, as big as it is, I think it's important to understand, like, what a healthy looks like for you. What do you say about that?
That all makes sense. I think I can break it down with an analogy, which is that if people know about like the different types of animal relationships, right? So if you know what a parasitic relationship is, that's like a leech that lives on, an animal, right? So a leech is a parasite. It climbs onto the animal and it gets nourishment off the animal, and it costs the animal something. The animal is worse off for it, right? So the leech drinks your blood, and that helps the leech. But the person whose blood's getting drunk might get anemic, or they're losing nutrients, right? Leeches are bad for you. Okay. Ticks are bad for you. Mosquitoes, bad for you. That's a parasitic relationship. Okay. But there's also symbiotic relationships. All right. So a symbiotic relationship in the animal kingdom is like, Finding Nemo, he's a clownfish. Clownfish live inside sea anemones, right? Those little, they're animals, but they look like flowers, but they sting. But clownfish are immune to the stingers. And so clownfish can live in the sea anemone, right? And the clownfish can eat the parasites off the sea anemone. And the sea anemone has stingers that would sting anything that would try to eat the clownfish. So both benefit, right? They benefit. Clownfish need sea anemones, and sea anemones benefit strongly from clownfish. So in that same way, a healthy relationship is where everybody in the relationship benefits, right? If it's parasitic, maybe someone benefits, but someone else is getting hurt, right? In a healthy relationship, everybody is better off with each other. That would be whether that's monogamy, that would be whether that's polyamory or polygamy. As long as everybody in it is better off for it, then I would call it healthy. And I can say that without knowing anything about it. If they're all better off, then I guess it's healthy.
That's actually a good point. Because even if I know what I want and I'm in a relationship with my partner and they don't want that, it's actually not healthy. I
It's not
totally
healthy
missed
for
that
them.
part.
If it's not
No,
if it's not what's kind of helping you and nourishing you, right? Maybe sometimes people stay in a relationship, they go, well, they need me. If they said if I leave, they'll fall back into addiction, or if I leave, they'll kill themselves. Okay, so for them to get better, you got to stay with someone who's threatening to kill themselves. Like, sounds like you're gonna get worse if you stay. So that's like,
yeah, that's good. I'm so glad you clarified that, because I totally missed that point. It needs to be mutual for both partners to be healthy. Just because there's a lot of toxic relationships where one person's fine with the toxicity and the other person may be struggling. It's not healthy.
a very common dynamic is where one person is the flower pot. One person is the watering can, and one person is the flower. So all the watering and nourishing goes in one direction, right? The people that come, oh, that's just how they are. Let me talk to them. Oh, you know how they are. You have to, where they have to make excuses for why they stormed out of a dinner party or why they didn't show up to their cousin's christening, whatever it is, because they need special handling that only I can provide. So this person ends up killing themselves to keep this other person afloat. But in actuality, we both should be swimming towards a common life goal. That would be nice. Even if that life goal is just have fun. It's not fun that
Yeah, you're right.
you need, when you get drunk at a party, I have to like manage you all night. And then what I get out of it is that people go, "Oh, you're such a saint." Yuck.
Right. Rose, I'm gonna put yours up in a second. Let me just finish this up. Somebody said, "Wait, but don't y'all think relationships are an us thing? I guess like a me thing, or us. I'm not sure what that means.
I
Us
think
thing.
I think that what I just said answered that, which is to say that
Oh, okay.
us means everyone is nourished. Even if it's good for
Yeah,
you,
yeah,
if
yeah.
it's not good for the other person, then it's not a healthy relationship. I get why the parasite would want to stay, though. I get why leeches like warm mammal blood, but mammals don't like leeches.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're right. That's what that meant. Honor, love, respect compromises that don't manipulate your core values, etc. I honestly don't believe healthy and unhealthy is whatever works for you. I'm not
I
okay.
honestly don't believe that healthy and unhealthy is whatever works for you. Right. Well, the word works is doing a lot of heavy lifting in this. So if works means I
Okay.
stay, then I agree with the Facebook user. Just saying whatever
Yeah.
keeps you staying, I don't agree with that. But if works means is
Right.
good for me, it nourishes me, I'm better off with it, then I think works is a good word. That works it could be interpreted that way.
That's good, Facebook user, whoever that is. And I think that that's a great point because some people grew up in childhood environments that mimic their relationship and it works for them, but it's not healthy. So thank you for that clarification. I'm so glad we
It's
get to do this
familiar.
live
They
so
say
y'all can check
it's
me. Yeah,
familiar. It seems right because I'm used to it, but works me, and that's what some people stay with somebody who puts hands on them,
because it
that screams
works.
at them because it goes, yeah, this is what relationships are. This is what mom had. This is what grandmom had. So this feels right. Oh, it feels right, but it's poisoning you like it poisoned mom and grandma. And so,
Mm-hmm.
ideally, you would leave. Right. This Facebook user, we all know a relationship could survive and be unhealthy. Right. Just like
Unfortunately, yeah.
you can be riddled with parasites and not die. Right. Exactly. Oh,
Um,
Rosemary got a
so this is a
longie.
follow-up to the question. Rose asked about forgiveness. What's the time frame? Um, and this is long, but I will try to shorten it. I had a good relationship with the grandmother. You can't make this up. Like I just talked about my grandmother, but I had a good relationship with the grandmother of my kids. So I thought I want to know, did I have the right to be upset in the situation? She invited myself and the kids to her house for a BBQ party. Weeks before the party, she was at my house talking about I should have another kid with her son, knowing her son is in a relationship. So I went to her party while there the female that her son is with shows up. I got upset and left early. Um so you shouldn't be upset with her
Is that,
because you had a
Celeste, if I can
choice.
ask, is that
Oh,
the
go ahead.
end? As soon as she
Yeah.
continues, she says she said that dot dot dot. Is that it?
Oh, I got upset and left early. Maybe because she said that I should have another kid with her son.
There's no second part. It looks like there is, but there's not.
No, there's no second part. Nope.
All right.
Mm-mm.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Celeste. So what are you saying?
So my like if I'm like talking to a client and this comes up, I would because I'm always about reminding people of their power, and I would remind the person that you had the power once somebody is saying I should have another child and this person's in a relationship. um I would realize like that person doesn't mean me well because you're trying to put me in a messy situation. So this person is with another person already. So going to this party, there's a likelihood this person will be there. Um, you could be upset that she said it, but are you like it seems like you're upset because the other female showed up there. Um, so I think that you have a right to be upset, but just really not forgetting what your power is. Like you have a choice not to entertain those kind of conversations because it sounds very unhealthy to like knowing your son is in a relationship and talk to the child's mom and talk about having another baby because maybe the grandmother doesn't really like the child's mom. I mean, doesn't like the person that the guy's with. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think, when I read that, Rosemary, I'll be honest and say that when I read that, it sounds a little bit, and I could be reading into this incorrectly, that when Grandma recommended this, you weren't 100% against it. It sounded like you thought like, that's not the worst thing. So then when you go to the party and the current girlfriend shows up, you feel a little betrayed. That's what I'm reading, but maybe I'm reading the situation incorrectly. And so the question
Mm.
is, should you be upset and who betrayed you? Well, it's not really up to Grandma whether or not you have another kid with her son. It's up to you and the son. And the son didn't make any promises, and the son's current girlfriend didn't make any promises. So I guess the only person to be upset with is Grandma. You're like recommending messy stuff, and then also it doesn't seem like you recommended messy stuff, and then if I'm down with the plan, it seems like if you wanted this to happen, then why would you let the girlfriend come? Do you see what I'm saying? But that's kind of thin because
Mhm.
you're saying it's as if you both agreed to do some slick. If you were going to be mad in a way, it's like, hey, I thought we agreed to do some slick stuff, and then Grandma like halfway bailed on it. Do you get what I mean? So it is.
I get it. I get it.
I might be a little upset, but I might more take that in. Like, if I was going to have another kid with this guy, I would probably talk to him about it, not Grandma. And also, if I wasn't going to do it on the side from his girlfriend, then I probably would wait for him not to have a girlfriend. And more than anything, I probably would just accept that this woman was talking crazy and setting me up for messiness, and I'll keep that in mind. That's it.
Yeah, I
That's
like
all I can
it.
think of to
That's
do
it.
because it's like you agreed to rob a bank, and then she
The
invited the
getaway
police.
driver.
Yeah, she
Okay.
invited the police. She said, "Hey, I thought we was robbing this bank." But I'm not saying quite, Rosemary, that you were certainly going to rob the bank. But you're like, if we were casing this bank, why would you bring the police? But like, yeah, if Grandma's she's being pretty messy, she's maybe not the right person to team up with.
Yeah. And in general, I think for people listening, don't ever forget your power in situations. Like, understand what you're feeling. You see, I got my little emotion chart over here. Read the rest. It doesn't. It's not showing me anything else. Um, my emotion chart here because that's important. So understand what you are feeling about situations, and validate. Like, it's okay to feel a certain way, but just remember your power, regardless of what the grandmother said or regardless of what somebody said. Remember, like, you have choices. I think sometimes when we grew up in situations where we didn't have choices as adults, sometimes like our brain goes into this like mode where it's in survival mode again because an emotion is familiar to an experience you had when you didn't have choices, and then people start to feel paralyzed. Feeling paralyzed and being paralyzed are two different things. And so that's why I'm big on like identifying what you're feeling so you can understand it and not allow that emotion to dictate what you choose to do or not do. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, I've there's a story they tell. I don't know if this is true, but it's a story they tell. There really is basically no chain strong enough to hold an elephant, right? There really is no chain that can do that, or it'd have to be huge. But when you look at the elephants at the circus, either they're not chained up at all, or they're chained up with a very small chain. And what I heard, this may or may not be true, but the principle is what you're talking about, Celeste, that when elephants are first born, the chain is strong enough. And the elephants get used to the fact that this chain can't be broken. As they get bigger, they could break the chain, but they don't try because they're used to it. So in that same way, when you're little, you got no power and you're paralyzed. As you get older, you do got power, but you feel paralyzed like when you were little and you behave like a huge elephant on a tiny chain. And you could break that chain anytime you want to.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so good. You told this elephant story before, but that's actually a really good analogy to what happens literally in our lives. Which is why I always talk about emotions and the power we have, is because I need for people to understand this. So when they're in situations where things get a little bit uncomfortable, don't feel like you can't make any choices because you can. All right, I'm gonna go to the next question.
Mhm.
Um, I was in a relationship for 4 years and we broke up 3 weeks ago. It was a mutual breakup. We just are two different people and it wasn't working. I'm 28 and trying to figure out how I can get comfortable with being single. The holidays are around the corner and I need to figure out how to tell people. I wish I didn't care about people asking, but I'm realizing I do.
Hmm. I think that's very self-aware to say, I wish I didn't care about people asking, but I realize that I do. I think that's real talk. You know what I mean? Because you're not just, you know, that you want to feel a certain way, but you don't feel that way. I think that's great to acknowledge that. That being said, when you say comfortable, again, there's something nice about being liberated from a relationship that wasn't working, and there's something that could be lonely about being someone who spent years with a pretty frequent companion, and now you don't have that default companion. And I think looking in the mirror and saying like, yeah, there's going to be like some loneliness associated with that. I think that that's okay. But also, what a time to lean on your natural supports, right? What a time to make sure that you're leaning and talking to your various friends and your family and doing things that enrich you. Like, I don't mean make money, I mean like the things you enjoy, right? The things that maybe you didn't used to do because the partner didn't like it. And by that, I mean, like let's say you're messing with someone who's lactose intolerant, right? And so you used to love pizza, but now you don't eat pizza like that because they're lactose intolerant. Well, you're sad to lose them, but at the same time, finally I can eat pizza again, or whatever it is, right? You can kind of reacquaint yourself with the parts of yourself that you had pruned because they weren't convenient in the relationship. So those are all the things you can do. And when you're doing that, I think part of why sometimes people are embarrassed, look, they think like a long relationship breakup is like some kind of failure instead of looking at it for what it was, which was something that worked for a while and then stopped working, and then you had the courage to terminate it. That's the truth of the matter. Other people have relationships too that aren't going to break up. Instead, they're going to be miserable. But you didn't do that because you had courage. And other people never dared to get in a relationship because they didn't take a chance on love. But you didn't do that. You did take the chance. So I think of all the possible outcomes, you've got the best one. Someone who knows what it's like to be with somebody and also knows what it's like to make a move. And I think if you enrich your life and take that perspective, you do both those things. When people say, "Oh, where's Larry?" You can say, "Oh, me and Larry broke up actually," knowing that that's not some admit of defeat. That's just like a step in the direction of your ultimate happiness.
Yeah, that's good. I really enjoy when I seen this question. I loved it. One because I do realize like people sometimes like lose who they are in relationships. You're very self aware. To say I wish I didn't care. People say that, and I say, you know what? Have grace with yourself, right? The fact that you are aware that that bothers you, like you can work on figuring out what is it about people and their opinions that bother you, as opposed to like why do I care? Um, you want to know how to get comfortable with being single. Like Jeff said, kind of leaning into your supports, and doing things that like you probably weren't doing in the past. And if you were doing those things in the past, you can learn new things. Yes, the holidays around the corner. Uh, but you're probably in America. We live in a culture that unfortunately, when you go show up to events and you're single, they say, "Why are you single?" As if being single is a negative thing. So just really thinking about like, I think from earlier questions where we talked about writing down what your goals are, what you want out of life, think about what that is, and you hold on to that so that when these things come up and you may feel insecure or struggling with the fact that you're no longer with your partner, remembering that you have these goals, and so you can lean on to that. I think that would be helpful. Um, yes, moves are great until you get scared and try to go back. I know.
Well,
I know, that's so true.
you know what that's like when sometimes people say like, they say some version of like, don't, when you diet, you just gain the weight back. Okay, right. So you could either try and maybe you fail, maybe you don't, or you could not try and definitely fail. What makes more sense to do, right? Certainly,
Mhm.
There are certain people that return to relationships that weren't working for them, certainly. But everything that this writer indicated is that if they were to return, I might think that they would return because maybe they work something out in themselves or they work it out with their partners. Sometimes people, but they've only been broken up 3 weeks. So they could get back together. That's not like
Mhm.
admitting that they're cowardly. As long as they say, you know what, I've decided I'm going to, well, let's change this or that from now on. For example, let's have, I'm just making up anything, but a lot of what we fought about was, different, the hours we kept. So let's rent a two, even though we're two people, let's rent a 2-bedroom and we'll have separate bedrooms. And so some days we'll sleep together, some days we'll sleep apart. That works for both of us. And now we can move forward because most of the rest of our relationship worked. If you solve stuff like that, I'm with it. Don't go crawling back and say, I'm too scared to be alone. So I accept mistreatment. But everything this letter writer wrote made me think that they were the kind of person who was moving forward in this breakup, not who had somehow failed.
Yeah, that's true. And we gotta really like normalize, like, whether we're talking about intimate relationship or friendships, that sometimes things doesn't work out. I feel like when they don't work out, like, as I talk to people every day for a living, um, people look at it as a failure. And you can look at it as a lesson learned, or you can look at it as like looking at the beauty and the struggle, what you've learned from that relationship, what you got out of that relationship. But the way we just like unfortunately look, and I'm not saying you feel like you're a failure, but I think in general, sometimes people feel like it's a failure because something didn't work out. In relationships, you can't make people be who you want them to be, and so when you realize it doesn't work, moving, you both. It says it was a mutual decision. The fact that you both moved on is super dope. That doesn't happen anymore. People are stagnant in misery, and it's so sad. A user says, learning to be single again. Embrace the learning process, the re-knowing of who you are. Know it may be hard around holidays and birthdays, and that's okay, right? And Jeff says that a lot. Sometimes the decisions we make, um, it may be a hard decision, but you're doing what's best for you. It may be hard for the other person that when you're making a decision, but you're doing, and we can't help it. Like, it's an emotion. Like, it may be hard, and that's okay. One thing you said one time was like the song sun and rain, sun,
Oh,
like
yeah.
it rains, the sun comes, like that. if we
Joy and
if we
pain, like,
understood.
right? Joy and
Yeah.
pain, sunshine and rain. The idea that these things exist in contrast to each other and they're both needed. There's no such thing as a beautiful garden, but it never rained there. That's just, it's part of what you need.
Hmm. Yeah. And it's like one thing my kids know is like, because they get upset. They're humans, and they be like, "I know, mom, life is hard." Because I let them know early and often, but unfortunately, like, nobody's telling us this, and so we're learning it the hard way. And so like the more we understand that like life has like so many ups and downs, I think when they come, we can like not shy away from them, not try to ignore them. We can like lean into it, so we're not like it's not lingering into other relationships or the rest of our lives. There's so many people that are aging every day and still living in pain from something that happened 20 years ago. Like, that's not the way we should be living life. um
You got to do the work.
how do I tell people I actually make sense that people will want to know that was a long-term relationship? I would practice a general answer and leave it at that. Yeah, that's another point I wanted to make too. When I read the question, I was thinking, like, you don't have to go into any details about your relationship. Like, that's not nobody's business.
That's true.
So
Right, just a
really,
pat
yeah,
answer,
that's
right?
so true.
Me and Larry, we're not working out, and you could do it in a tone that most people will get the point. Like, don't inquire further. Every once in a while, the aunt
Yeah.
will be like, "Larry, girl, I thought you was gonna get married," and all this. And you just go, like, you just kind of make it clear, like, we're not really talking about this. Not that there's any shame, but just as long as you don't want to talk about it, you don't have to.
Yeah, and I agree, G. Singleness does allow you time to grow. It's I'm in a relationship, so sometimes it's hard to hear something from somebody that's in a different place than you are, but it really does allow you to grow. And so I think that's an important point. I'm gonna just quickly touch on this and then move on to the next question. So Rose is saying that she doesn't want any more kids with the grandmother's son. I was mad because she was at my house saying all of these things and then you invite the girl to the barbecue. If her son was the one that invited him, I would not have gotten upset. Her son was incarcerated, so I did not see the need for the girl to have been there. My point still remains the same about like um regardless of if she invited the girl or not, it's important to understand like you have the power, especially she's at your house, you can ask her to leave, as uncomfortable as it may be. If the conversation was something that you didn't enjoy, then you don't have to entertain it. Like, what's your thoughts on that part?
Well, first, Rose, thank you for that context. I always admitted that I'm reading into it, and I could have been wrong, and so I was wrong in my read. I didn't my guess at what you meant was not right. Knowing that context now, it even makes more sense why mom would say that. If son's currently incarcerated and you're out living life and raising the child, then you could see how she would want to even increase your connection to her son, because if he's incarcerated, things aren't going great for him. Meanwhile, you're
He
stable.
was incarcerated.
Well, I took it as he was incarcerated during the party,
Oh,
right?
okay,
That's
okay.
why the girlfriend's there, but he is not, right? So it's not like the son brought the girlfriend. The grandmother must have invited her, right?
Hmm.
Fine. So the point is,
That's true.
although it's
Yeah.
the grandmother being slick, you could see how she would tell both of y'all, listen, my son's great for you, because she's really worried that her son is going to be high and dry. You know what I mean? That he's incarcerated and y'all are moving life. So I could get why she would push that. The point is, I think now you know. In the end, her loyalty, you would hope that everyone's loyalty would be to your child first, right? Everyone that's involved. But remember, for the mother, that your baby father, the guy in jail, that's her child. So that she would give you biased advice is not morally correct, but to be expected. And now you know. So I wouldn't like confront her and fight with her. I
It's
would
not
just
worth
know it.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, I would just know that, and know like, yeah, she just wants to make sure that she's not taking care of her son forever. And if it's me instead, she would be happy with that. And it doesn't sound like you would be. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's good. You know, people have alternative motives, and you just again knowing what you want, what works for you, what you're uncomfortable with. The issue is that we're not sitting with ourselves long enough to know when we're uncomfortable, right? We're struggling with sleep, we're struggling with so much, and a lot of times it's because we don't really understand our system's response to when we're struggling, right? So, like, really thinking about that is important. All right, next question. It says, oh my bad, I'm gonna put that there. How can I motivate my partner to be more ambitious? He's a great person, but I can tell he is insecure. I want to help without being too overbearing. Oh, I love that. That's good.
Well, right. I love that at least it's moderated by I don't want to be too overbearing.
Hmm.
That being said, what do you think is the most motivating thing? You think your girl coming to you and saying you need to be more ambitious? You think that's,
No,
or be
no.
less insecure? You think that's it?
Mm-mm. We have similar questions like this all the time, and yeah, like that's definitely not it. No.
Right. The fact of the matter is that uh, your partner, he might be insecure, it might be whatever, he might view ambition differently from you, but that's the kind of thing that really flows from inside. Now, I'm not saying to break up. Okay, I'm not saying that, but I will admit that oftentimes when people are most unleashed is not when they're comfortable, it's when they hit rock bottom. And so some people, they get fired, and that's when they realize, I can't let this happen to me again, I'm going to change. They have a breakup and they go, I can't let this happen to me again, I'm going to change. That's far more common than you're in a comfortable, again, a C minus situation, and then you have an epiphany and turn into Puff Daddy himself. That's not a common occurrence. And so I would do the self work of accepting that this person's a great person, but maybe they're not defined by their ambition the way that, who's defined by that? I said Puffy because I think of him as a very ambitious guy, but whatever, Elon Musk or
Okay.
something like that.
I was thinking, what does Puffy have to do with this? He got a lot
Right.
going on.
He's very ambitious, right? He's not particularly talented. He's just determined to be successful. Right. It's not like he's the best singer of all time or anything like that. He just said, I should be rich. And he just works night and day to make that happen. Some people are like that, most people are not. And so if he's a great person, but he's not like that, whether you diagnose it as insecurity or something else, a lot of the self-work might be, to what degree can I help him facilitate his goals, which you're not talking like that's a goal of his, and to what degree can I accept that he is who he is, including that he's not Jeff Bezos. Meaning, I don't mean he's not rich, but he's not Jeff Bezos, just a ruthless beast who's gonna acquire and accomplish every second of his life.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's good. In my relation, me and my husband were both, we both work for ourselves, but he always says, man, he's a lot smarter than me. I can admit that, but he always says like how he wish he had my drive because I'm very like systematic. And a lot of the reasons why I'm the way I am, I think it definitely helps with like not struggling with the anxiety. So like I like to be in the driver's seat, unfortunately. And so we're two different people. One time Jeff talked about like, let's say like I was trying to lose weight and he's in my ear saying like, put the burger down, you know. I think that it's important to like, you can recognize something in your partner, whether we're talking about ambition or something else, but also like have grace and patience because there's something that you may be trying to work on that like you know you need to do, but you're not doing it. But obviously when you're outside of the picture, like I'm very good at talking to people, helping them like shift their thought process. But when I have my therapy sessions, sometimes he says stuff to me where I'm like, whoa, I didn't even see that. He's outside of the picture and he sees inside. You're outside of your relationship with your partner, so you can see it a lot clearly. So have grace because we are all struggling with something, right? And so it's important to understand that it takes time for change. Like Jeff started this podcast off talking about how hard change is. And so what I see in relationships is that people want people to rush the process. And it's like, no, like you got to give people time. Does that make sense?
It does. And, but even when you say give them time, if that's not the direction they're going, all the time in the world ain't gonna do it. And
That's
so
true.
that's why a lot of the work is to either you can be supportive of this person's goals to unleash them towards their goals, right? So he really wants to be the best stamp collector of all time. Since he's already motivated and identified that as a goal, you can be like, well, babe, what do you want me to do? How can I help? Do you want me to remind you or do this or do that? You could, but you think like, well, I'm going to like spark something in him that changes like the reason he lives his life for. You probably won't. It's probably going to take, that's like a personal thing. That comes before you. I don't mean before you in time, but it lives inside of him what he chooses to live his life for or not. And if you're really dissatisfied with it, then the work is for you to get satisfied with it, because it's not something you can like influence, where you go, he's so sweet and nice, but if only he could also want to go to law school.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, well, some people, that's all they want to do is go to law school. And other people, they would never want to go to law school. And you can't probably swap the two.
Right. You can't. All right, we have two more questions. I'm trying to keep it under an hour. Let's see if we can do that. My friend and I have been friends for quite a long time, and he tried to hit on me recently, I think. And it was uncomfortable because I've always looked at him as a friend. I also know and have become friends with his ex-wife. I don't think our friendship will ever be the same. Do you think it could be repairable?
So you have a romance zone and you have a friend zone. And this guy tried to step out of the romance zone and get into step out of the friend zone and get into the romance zone. If you want him back in the friend zone, you can tell him that. And you say, I don't know if our relationship will ever be the same. If he climbs back in the friend zone and stays there, then I guess it could be the same. But if he is simply looking for opportunities to escape the friend zone and won't stay there, then the difference was before you didn't know that and now you do. You know what I'm saying? So before, you didn't think that this was a motive, which is not evil or bad. Isn't it nice to be attractive and people want to be with you and stuff? That's great. But I'm just saying, if you thought like, I look at you as a pure friend, and now you find out he's like, well, I'm actually interested in other opportunities, then it may never be the same. So basically, it's up to him, in the sense that it's up to him whether or not he's accepted. Well, it says he tried to hit on me, and I take that to mean, I actually jumped the gun a little bit. I took that to mean that you clearly said no. But there's also a real chance that you gave some kind of mixed message. And if you did, then your relationship will really not be the same, because anything but a no is a keep trying. You see what I'm saying?
I see
So,
it. Yeah.
so if you said, you know what, Daryl, I look at you as a friend, and that is it. That's all I'll ever look at you as. I've known you a long time. I know your ex-wife. And so I want to be friends with you, but no more. And I never will. So if you want to be friends, we can never talk. We can like basically not talk about this again. And then he can either be like, word, and climb back in, or he can be like, hell no, I demand love. And then he's chosen. Or what happens a lot, he says yes, and then keeps trying.
Hey, Miss P Love, I gotta show her love because she always comes in here. So in America, sex and like all this stuff is like stuff that is so taboo, which is why we have like really high STD rates and like all this stuff. I don't think that the friend should be shunned for having feelings for you. But I do think because it's not something you want, you have to be assertive. So it says try to hit on you. You could have taken something as tried, or it could have been very like clear. Either way, you have to have a direct conversation with that person to say like, hey, like, just so we're clear, like, I really enjoy you as a friend, and this is like, I want to keep it as a friendship. And like Jeff said, if they continue to pursue, then I think it would be like you can't continue the relationship. But I don't think uh I don't think it's fair, in my opinion, for somebody to be like kind of dismissed or chastised because they have emotions for you. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with when I say there's nothing wrong, it's flattering and nice, and it's a compliment and all that. But the thing is, once you say no, not once you duck and dodge, go, you're so silly, and don't really say no, and then he just keeps trying. But once you actually say
Right.
no, then if he gets to basically choose, do I accept that framework of a relationship, right? A platonic friendship, or do I not accept it? You could still be friends, but it's whether or not he accepts basically going back in that framework. A lot of times people don't, but sometimes they do.
Sometimes I
That's the
do. Yeah.
situation.
hmm So, yeah, that's my opinion. That's our opinions. All right, let me get
Mhm.
to this last question. Um, so it says, I am trying to figure out the best way to talk to my man about sex. I'm not satisfied and I don't know how to bring this up. I'm worried he will feel bad. I don't want to hurt him. I just want to hype up our sex life.
This is actually one of the more concrete things. So if you say, uh, you don't satisfy me in bed, that will go poorly. We agree. We agree, letter writer.
I
Do not say
agree. I agree. Don't
do
say
not
that,
say you do
please.
not satisfy me in bed. Instead, you get to be, for most people, now that occasionally it's like my mate just doesn't care about my needs. He just lays on top of me and does something for him. He uses me like a piece of meat. That's a thing that happened in the world. But most men like the idea that they satisfy women in bed. They like that idea. They're just doing the wrong stuff. They got bad feedback. No one's giving them feedback. And so they're
Or
doing some.
watch too much porn.
Oh, that's clearly a big one, right? Porn, which is primarily made for a male audience, and so in porn, like, women are performing blowjobs and acting like they're performing blowjobs and going, oh, like as if it feels great for them, which is not the reality for most women, right? So they could be deceived that way, and so what you get to do is be all positive, right? You say something, babe, do this. And then when he does it, really react. Oh, this is so amazing. Oh, you're so great. That's really all it takes. And they'll go, oh, I learned the secret. You got to use the double flip twist. Do you get what I'm saying? Where you just encourage the things that you like and then really, really, really respond positively. And slowly over time, you're training that person to do this and do that. If it's something that they don't go anywhere near, then when you land there, you go, you know what I really want to try? Or you know what really turned me on just thinking about you doing any position other than missionary. You know what I really think about? You wearing this or saying this or doing that. Basically, dudes get very little of that. Generally, get very little of like, I've been fantasizing about you today, fantasizing about you doing this, and I want to do it tonight. You get a text
Oh,
like
dudes don't hear that from females. Is that what you're trying to
correct,
say?
correct, because it's
Okay.
the implicit idea is that men are supposed to lead and women are supposed to follow,
Right.
like slow dancing. And so you
Right.
can only do what he leads. But so men very rarely hear a woman say, I've been thinking about you doing this, that, and
That's
this to me
true.
all day. Men don't receive that a lot. And so if
That's true.
he does, and then when you get home or when he gets home, you say like, baby, you got my text earlier. And then that should lead him to do the thing. And I would try so much of that before I ever said, listen, you just don't satisfy me. That's like, when I say that's a last resort, that's right next to saying I want a divorce. Do you see what I'm saying? That's right next to it, because
Yeah, we don't have to get that far.
it's
I don't
so
think we have to
personal.
get to that far to say I don't. But all your suggestions are good.
It's for that. It's like saying imagine saying to a woman like, my ex-girlfriend is just so much more beautiful than you.
Jesus
Like,
Christ.
there's just virtually no taking that back. You just can't say that,
I
really. It
know.
doesn't matter. Even if my ex-girlfriend's Nia Long, and we all know but you can never say that. You got to say, baby, personally, I don't prefer Nia Long. I prefer you. And you got to say, babe, personally, the way you touch me is great, especially when you do X and Y. And my God, do more of that. That's all you do. You're using all carrot. The carrot leads the donkey. The stick whips the donkey. All carrot, no
Yeah.
stick in this case, because the fragility of that aspect of most men's ego is so strong that any critique is devastating. But suggestions are welcome.
Yeah. No, that's good. It's important. I don't know if this is, I assume it's a female, but obviously we don't know. But I feel like sometimes females are, not used to pleasure um, and asking for things. So I think if, it's important to do that. And like Jeff said, I think the notion is, it seems like men are supposed to lead situations, but be okay with being uncomfortable with leading and asking questions. And even if it's not during like a sexual interaction, you can always like, I really encourage couples to like have talks on a regular basis about what's going well, what's not going well. I read somewhere where people talked about relationships should be treated like a business, right? And so you have to be very intentional about it. And I think that in business, in a sense of the way you like grow it, right? Because in relationships, like me and my husband, we met when we were like 19, 20. So it was over 20 years ago. I'm not the same person he met 20 years ago. And so I've grown like so much. And so it's important, I think, to have regular conversations because it, again, like I said earlier, in America, sex talk is so taboo. And I feel like this should be the same thing as, in my opinion, I feel like if you're struggling in your sex life, I wish it was a conversation like as if like, oh, like what are we having for dinner, right? I think it should be that way, but I know it's not. So definitely don't just straight out say it and kind of use Jeff's suggestions, but also don't deny yourself of pleasure out of fear, because especially women, especially Black women, I feel like we work really hard. And I think that by the time we get home and stuff, like, I feel like we struggle with like pleasure because we are so addicted or used to taking care of other people. So just kind of be mindful of that.
All true. This is not, I hope it was clear. This is not trying to put his ego or his feelings
Mm.
above your sexual enjoyment. This is trying to get the result that you want, which is if you thought
Yeah.
he wasn't performing before, tell him he's bad and then see how he performs. It'll be worse.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But instead, because think about like good sex requires like enthusiasm. And so
Mm-hmm.
when you gas up the aspects that you like, I would expect even more enthusiasm in those arenas, and that will result
Yeah.
directly in your pleasure.
Yeah. I agree. And kudos to you for like being mindful of your partner's like emotions. I think that's important. When it sounds, I mean, it's, you probably it sounds like you have a healthy relationship. This may be one area, and again, this is an area that sex, we don't talk about sex enough. We don't talk about emotions enough. So I can see why it would be like kind of a hard thing to bring up. So Jeff, we had a lot of questions today.
We did. I think this is the
Is there
most
any
ever. I feel pretty confident.
I know, yeah. I did a lot of promotion. I'm proud of myself. Oh. um, what say you, like kind of wrapping it up, our last podcast together in the 30s, in my 30s. You know I'm
Mm.
dramatic.
Yeah, you are being dramatic about that. Look, I think these questions were insightful and varied, and I'm always happy. You know, I always love. Life is hard, and it's this journey, but I always love that. Think of all the people out there that they're struggling with stuff, but they're trying, man. They're trying. They're not just laying down and dying. They're trying to make things better, make their lives better. I respect that. That's really all you can do, right? Even if you fix these problems, folks, you'll have new problems. That's life. When you tell yourself, like, you know what, I'll fix things when life calms down. Life ain't never gonna calm down. Never. All you can do is you're just a captain on the ocean, and you're fixing the ship while you're also sailing, and that's that. You say, I'll fix the ship when we I'll fix the ship when the ocean is safe and easy. The ocean is never safe and easy. It's full of sharks and typhoons and whirlpools. Never.
Wait, but we want to get hold on for a second. We got to give people hope. So we stay with the ship analogy. As you're
Oh no, no,
sailing through
no. That's light, but the ocean's also full of I was gonna
sun
say
and
mermaids, but that's
beauty.
actually not true.
Okay.
But beautiful sunsets and
Yeah.
the sea breeze, and you're going somewhere, and you get amazing moments. But your life will never just be easy, never.
Yeah. Great
So
analogy. I do. Gee, I love the analogy as well. But yeah, we want to give you hope because you know I've been in private practice since 2015, and people are like, man, adulting is hard. Like I don't know how I was trying to rush to be an adult, and yes, life is hard. Like I have little kids that will say that. Like nobody told me that. I just was living life hard. Life is hard, but also it's what you make it. Like looking at the beauty and the struggle, and you know, it's some people may be like, "What's the point?" And it's like you can choose to feel miserable every day, or you can choose to find the beauty in the day, right? Like the choice is yours. And for I honestly never thought I would like have this language or this mindset, and I've done so much work to kind of shift it, but I refuse to allow society to bring me down. And you know when my tagline is shifting the way you think, is because I've shifted so much. And when I'm working with people, they nobody hits the lottery, nobody gets a new house, a new car. They go through so much transformation because their thought process has changed. And it's extremely possible. So if we stay with the ship analogy, and you're like, I'm gonna fix it when the waters get straight, really understand that, like, you don't wait for that perfect moment. And as you're working on fixing things, look at the beauty and look at the sun. And when people say smell the roses, it's important to do that, because that's where the journey is, I think, is in the beauty.
there you go.
It's exactly. um, no, my birthday is on November 6th. I never knew life was hard until I started feeling feelings. Yes. So yeah. Thank you so much, Jeff. Tell people where they can find you because, I think people like you. I mean, I know they do.
Well, thank you.
I like you.
Well, thank you very much. You slowly walked it back.
Isn't
You were
that a
like, I
good
think
thing?
people. Well, no, you went. I think people like you. Well, I like you. You moved
No,
back from people
no,
to at
people
least
do like
me.
you.
Right. I appreciate it. If you need me, right, Jeff@rogersleads.com. You can go, you can look me up, or just keep watching the show. All right.
So yeah. So next time I see you guys live with Jeff, I'll be 40. I know I'm dramatic. Just let me be dramatic.
You're talking like
And
you're
we'll
right. You're
talk.
talking like it's so big. I'm already 40. So you're making it sound like I'll be dead. That means I'm already dead.
I know. Our birthdays are so close. It's crazy.
It's true. My birthday
All
is
right,
2 days.
guys.
My birthday is 2 days before yours.
I know. Yeah. That's why we work well together. Thank you
There
all
we go.
so much.